The Stupidest Waste of Money Part 2. Dad's Dream Bike. My dad always dreamed of a motorcycle. He is 55. My mother was against it because, well, why would you need a motorcycle and the road is dangerous? But then he found that motorcycle at some auction, a vintage Harley-Davidson. He paid $15,000. At first I thought it was a joke. He rode around the house a couple of times, and then it turned out that he has bad knees, and he simply cannot sit on a motorcycle for more than half an hour. The motorcycle has been standing in the garage for 3 years, gathering dust and reminding him of that wonderful purchase. Mom has not yet forgotten him about it. How I bought a boat without living on the water. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but a couple of years ago, I bought a boat. An expensive one, almost $25,000. At the time, I thought it would be the perfect way to spend my weekends, sailing off into the distance and enjoying my freedom. The problem is I live in the suburbs and the nearest body of water is a 2-hour drive away. I ended up using the boat maybe 3 times, and each time it involved the logistical hassle of taking a day off, renting a trailer, sitting in traffic. The boat sat in my garage, taking up all the space, until I sold it at a loss for $15,000. Since then, I've sworn off buying anything I can't actually use. My brother bought a yacht without knowing how to operate it. My brother always wanted to impress his friends. He's pretty successful financially, but sometimes he spends money like he's in a movie. One day, he decided to buy a yacht. Not a small speedboat. A real yacht for $120,000. He didn't even know how to steer the thing. The result? After a few months, the yacht became a useless hangar for seagulls. My family and I now call it a floating barn. And my brother has since stopped talking about sailing. Betting on a sporting event for the thrill of it. I once decided to play big league and bet $1,000 on a football game, even though I wasn't a big football fan. It was because a coworker told me the team was going to win. I thought, why not? Maybe I'll get lucky. And of course, they are lost. And not just lost, it was a disaster. I lost money in literally 90 minutes. So, the next day at the office, I heard this coworker say something like, well, sports are always a risk. Since then, I've never gotten involved in big bets, especially on things I don't understand. The wedding cake that nobody ate. When I got married, I insisted on having a huge, 3-tiered wedding cake that cost $2,000. I thought it would add a touch of luxury to our day and be a great addition to the photos. However, during the wedding itself, the guests were too busy socializing, dancing, and drinking cocktails. When it came time for the cake, almost no one wanted to eat it, and most of it just sat there, falling apart by the end of the night. We tried to take it home, but it was so huge that there was no way to fit it in the refrigerator or anywhere else. In the end, most of it ended up being thrown out. It was like throwing a couple $1,000s straight into the trash. The neighbor decided to make himself a pond. Our neighbor, Mr. Dave, has always been a little weird but friendly. One day, he decided he wanted a real Japanese pond in his yard. He ordered a design for $25,000. They brought in a bunch of rocks, plants, and koi fish. The only problem was that the pond was poorly designed and the filters didn't work properly. Within a month, the whole thing had turned into a stinking pit. Dave ended up spending another $10,000 to tear it all down. Now it's just a lawn. $35,000 well spent, huh? Daughter insisted on a graduation limo. When my daughter graduated from high school, she really wanted to go to prom in a limo. Not just any limo, but one of those that looks like something out of a gangster movie, with all the glitter and lights. We rented it for $3,000. And guess how many minutes they rode in it? 5. 5 minutes. The traffic was blocked, and they walked out in the middle of the road to make it in time for prom. But the limo looked awesome on Instagram. A parachute jump is a gift to myself that never happened. I always dreamed of skydiving. And for my birthday, I decided to treat myself to a $600 jump. I bought everything in advance, confident that it would be an incredible experience. I arrived at the airfield on the appointed day, but there was a strong wind, and the jump was canceled. They were offered to reschedule for another day, but I live 150 miles away, and choosing a suitable day was more difficult than I thought. In the end, I never went back, and the company kept the money. Every time I think about that day, I remember how perhaps I should have just waited for a closer opportunity, instead of throwing money around in advance. My bad investment in a collectible toy. When I was younger, I got caught up in the hype around a rare collectible toy called Beanie Babies. I bought $5,000 worth of them, thinking they would be my retirement. I remember dreaming that they would be worth tens of thousands when I got old. Now I have a box of them in my basement that aren't even worth $10 a piece. Every time I look at them, I think about how I could remodel my bathroom or go on a vacation with that money. Brother tried to impress a girl. My little brother was dating a girl, and I think he was head over heels in love. For their anniversary, he decided to give her a hot air balloon ride. The cost of this luxury was $2,500. The flight lasted only 15 minutes, after which it started raining and they were returned to the ground. And the funniest or saddest thing is that they broke up 2 weeks after this romantic adventure. My brother still calls it the most expensive mistake of my life. A camping car that no one used. I always dreamed of traveling around the U.S. in a camper van, and 2 years ago, I bought one for $30,000. I thought it would be the perfect vehicle for family camping. However, it turned out that my wife gets seasick when she is in the car for long periods of time, and the kids hate camping. We only went once, and it was such a disaster that the camper has been sitting in a parking lot ever since. I pay for storage every month, and now I realize that it would be much cheaper to just rent a camper van for a couple of weeks than to buy one and suffer all these expenses. The wedding doves that flew the wrong way. At my cousin's wedding, they decided to do a $1,200 dove release to symbolize love and freedom. When the doves were released, most of them just landed on a nearby tree and didn't fly away. The whole moment was a total failure, and the guests spent a lot of time discussing why the doves decided not to fly. They were later somehow taken away, but the magic moment effect was clearly not a success. In the end, it was the most unnecessary waste of money that we still laugh about. My vinyl record collection that I never used. When I moved into a new apartment, I decided that I was going to become a real music lover. I bought myself a vinyl player for $800 and a bunch of vinyl records, spending another $2,000 on them. I thought that I would sit in the evenings, drink wine, and listen to vinyl like a real music lover. But the reality is that I have no time at all, and if I had free time, Spotify was much more convenient. As a result, the player collects dust in the corner, and the records sit on the shelf purely for decoration. I don't even remember the last time I turned on this player. The coffee maker I hate. When I saw an ad for a $1,200 state-of-the-art coffee maker, I was sure it would be a great way to start my mornings. It made everything from espresso to cappuccino to latte and promised cafe-quality coffee in my kitchen. There was just one thing I didn't take into account. I hate complicated instructions and fiddling with machines. This coffee maker required rinsing, adjusting, dosing, cleaning. It ended up being so annoying that I went back to brewing coffee from a regular French press. It sits in my kitchen, and every time I look at it, I feel annoyed at the money I wasted. My home gym failure. A couple of years ago, I decided it was time to take my health into my own hands and decided to set up a home gym. I bought myself a treadmill, dumbbells, and an exercise bike. Altogether, it cost me about $3,500. I was sure it would motivate me to work out at home. For the first couple of months, I actually used the equipment, but then I got bored and started making excuses not to work out. Now the treadmill serves as a place to dry clothes, and the exercise bike just sits in the corner. I think a simple gym membership would have been cheaper and definitely more beneficial. A ticket to a concert, that never happened. I once bought a ticket to a concert of my favorite band for $600. It was an expensive ticket with VIP access, and I was really looking forward to it. The day before the concert, I caught a bad cold and just physically couldn't get out of bed. The ticket was non-refundable, and none of my friends wanted to buy it because the price was too high. I was lying at home, blowing my nose into a handkerchief, thinking that it would have been better to buy a regular ticket and not take the risk. The concert never happened, and the $600 just went nowhere. TV for the kitchen. When my wife and I were remodeling our kitchen, I decided it would be cool to have a small TV in there. I paid about $900 to have it mounted right on the wall above the breakfast bar. In my head, it was going to be a place where I could make breakfast, watch the news, or watch late-night shows. In reality, the kitchen isn't the most comfortable place to watch TV. It's either noisy or just awkward to turn my head. I probably only turned it on 3 times in 2 years. It's one of those things I just bought on impulse, without thinking about how useful it would actually be. The robot vacuum cleaner that's afraid of my cat. I bought a $700 robot vacuum cleaner, hoping it would make cleaning my house easier. But what I didn't take into account was that I have a cat who, for some reason, hates this vacuum cleaner. Every time I turned it on, the cat would panic, hiss, and even attack it. As a result, every time I wanted to clean, there would be a real battle between the robot and the cat. Now the vacuum cleaner is idle, and I'm back to using a regular vacuum cleaner. Money wasted. and the cat is happy that his enemy is no longer rustling around the house. The barbecue grill that didn't fit on the balcony. I decided I wanted to be a barbecue master and bought a huge grill for $1,500. The problem is that I live in an apartment and my balcony was too small to fit the grill properly. After trying to place it a few times, I realized that the grill was taking up half the space and the neighbors started complaining about the smoke. I ended up using it a couple of times and realized that it was easier to go somewhere in the countryside or to a friend's house than to do all this on a tiny balcony. I sold the grill for an $800 loss and have since preferred not to bother with bulky purchases. The motorcycle I sold a month later. I always dreamed of owning a motorcycle, imagining how I would be cutting through the road. The wind would blow in my face. True freedom. So when I got a bonus at work, I immediately decided to make my dream come true and bought myself a motorcycle for $10,000. I bought it without even having a license. After a month with it, I realized that in order to ride a motorcycle, you need to pass a test, take training, and I suddenly realized that, frankly, I was afraid of speed in the open road. I sold it for $7,000. And to this day, I remember that moment as an example of my most impulsive and stupid purchase. The smart home system that outsmarted me. I decided it was time to get up to speed with technology and installed a $3,000 smart home system. It was an entire ecosystem of sensors, cameras, smart bulbs, and thermostats. It all seemed so convenient until I realized that half of these features were unnecessary and the setup was a nightmare. One day, the system turned the heat up to full blast while I was out, and I walked back into a real steam room. Now I only use the thermostat, and even then it's on the lowest setting, and the rest of the smart part of the house just sits there. A horse for a daughter that she quickly forgot about. My daughter had been asking for a horse for a long time, and I decided to make her dream come true. I bought the horse for $5,000 and spent a lot of money on stable rent, care, and feed. In total, another $7,000 ran up over the year. The first few weeks, my daughter was really into it, went to classes, but soon she got bored and lost interest. I tried to motivate her somehow, but the horse was idle, and the costs kept growing. In the end, I had to sell it at a loss and admit that it was one of those ideas that sounds better than it turns out to be in practice. Awesome interview suit that didn't get used. When I was preparing for an important interview, for some reason I thought that a suit was the key to success. I almost spent $1,200 on it to look my best. But after all the fittings and the final purchase, it turned out that the interview was moved online due to the pandemic. I sat in this expensive suit in front of my laptop, feeling completely stupid, especially considering that I was wearing ordinary house slippers on my feet. By the way, I didn't get the job, and I haven't taken the suit out of the closet since.